Hey, everybody. Hey, guys. Hey, everybody. It's just after 6, so let's find a seat and sit down and get this meeting started so we can all go home and, I don't know about you, but go to bed. Do you want to take notes or take a clicker? Okay. You want to? At the end, after your presentation. Sounds good. I don't know about my presentation, but we'll see. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate that you being here. I know it's a weeknight and it's late. I don't know about you, but I feel like I should be eating dinner about now and starting to unwind a bit and getting in my comfy pants. So thank you for being here. We hope that these night meetings will be helpful to people. I know sometimes it's hard to come during the day. So hopefully this is of assistance. If you find that it's not, you'd rather have it during the day, let us know. We're going to try to alternate and just kind of make this as accessible as possible to people. So, gosh, let's see. It's actually forwarding, great. So first thing we did want to talk about was, you may have heard, we have this reimbursement program that we're doing. We did get funding from the state to have that happen. So this is an opportunity for core applicants to receive up to $25,000 for certain startup costs, right? It is on a per permit basis. And we do thank our funding entity, the State of California, Bureau of Cannabis Control. Thank you, state. So I did want to make sure everyone really was very clear on what the eligibility is and kind of what the requirements are. So we all go into this understanding what we need. That we have basically 3 categories of people that can request this money. You can be verified by a core facilitator as core eligible. You can graduate from a core facilitator class program or currently be going through that program. If you're core eligible and you have already been issued a BOP, we're not going to make you go through the classes again. We'll consider that sort of an eligibility. You have to hold a current BOP or have an active BOP application, and you have to have 51% ownership of that business. So that's kind of our qualifying thing. We're trying to make it as broad as possible because we want to try to touch as many people as possible with this money and make it as available as possible. Any questions about that sort of categories of requesters? Oh, we're good. And we also have time for the questions at the end if you think of something, so don't be shy. As far as the expenses that can be reimbursed, it's a pretty big list. It's a lot of startup costs. So permit fees, application fees, other permit fees, rent. There are some kind of qualifications on that, as you see on here. We have all this on our website, so it is available there. Security deposit, security system, SMUD power upgrades, equipment specific to your business type. So if you're a manufacturer and you need equipment for that, you can have that as a qualifying expense. Business-related training and education. So if you need help on figuring out how to, I don't know, do your workers' comp insurance or whatever it might be. So it's a pretty wide category of things that are reimbursable. Now the not fun part, the documentation that we need. This is grant money, so we are kind of responsible to the state to make sure that we are applying these funds effectively, that they're actually being spent on things that need to be, that are qualifying expenses. So we are going to require you to fill out a city application. We had some at the front, and it's also on our website. It is literally a 2-pager, right? It's got your name, your business name, your type, your BOP status, who you went through the core program with, if you did. That's page 1. Page 2 is the different kinds of expenses and the amount you're asking for. And then just that you say that this information is correct. You'll attach receipts. Page 3 might be of concern to people, but I did want to talk about it. This is a reporting requirement that we have from the Bureau of Cannabis Control. We put it specifically on a separate page because our intention is that when we get these applications in, we're going to tear off this last page, put it in a separate pile. We won't know who it is, right? This doesn't have any names on it, but the state wants to know, like, who's getting this money, right? Who is this going to? So we have sections for gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, income, prior convictions, veteran status. So it's completely anonymous. We're not asking any names. You know, we're not going to deny your request for reimbursement if you don't fill it out, but it will make us more competitive as we go forward, because then we can kind of talk to the state about, these are the populations we are serving, and these are the people who have gotten the money, which I think is a good thing for them to know. So we don't really want to be up in your personal business, but we would appreciate it if you could fill this out when you apply for your reimbursement. As I said, hopefully our goal is to get as much money as possible in the future. So it's a pretty straightforward form. We're happy to, if you have any questions or problems with it, we're happy to talk with you guys. You know our number, our website, email address, so feel free. What else we've got is, we're still checking on this with our sort of fiscal folks, but we may also require a W-9 form. It's a one-pager, and a withholding exemption certificate, which is a 590. So these, again, one-page forms. They're really just asking for your name, your business address or your address, wherever that may be, and what your, basically what your status is. Are you an individual, a corporation, an LLC? And then you sign it. And then for the W-9, most of the same information. They do ask for either your social security number or employer ID information, your taxpayer ID number. And again, you sign it. So this is, again, just a bookkeeping thing for us. So in order to pay for every vendor, we ask to fill out one of these. It's a pretty straightforward form. Any questions, though, on these? We're happy to talk through. We can help you with that. We are looking at trying to do some kind of a 2 to 4 week turnaround. We realize it's a little bit long, but, you know, we are still the government, and, you know, we have, you know, people cut checks at certain times, and we have to kind of abide by those processes. We want to make sure to make to minimize that turnaround. We're going to be looking at streamlining our systems as to the extent that we can. We're also going to be asking you guys to help us in making sure that things are filled out to the extent that they can be, and again, we're happy to help. And also that your receipts really indicate both what the item is and a location or place name, because if you just go to Target and you buy QuickBooks, you know, we're not going to be able to know, is that your personal, is that a different business, who is this for? So we don't want to get sort of dinged by the state or have any issues with that. So by having that information on a receipt, to the extent that you can, that would be great. We're trying to be as open as we can, but still be responsible to the state grantors. Okay. So, a couple things that are interesting about this money is that we will allow you to keep coming to the well until you hit your 25,000. So if you have 10,000 you want to do now, and you know 15,000 in the future, 3,000 now, 4,000, then 6,000, however you want to do it, we're happy to keep going with you as long as we have the money. It is until the funds are exhausted. So I'm not urging you to go out and spend a ton of money, but you know it might be a good time if you're planning on it anyway. We do have to spend this money within a 1-year period of time. So once we get the funds, we have sent off our executed resolution from the city council to the state. We don't have the funds actually yet, but we will get them shortly. And from that time, it's a 1-year period of time. We don't want to send any money back to the state. I don't know about you guys, but if the state gives me money, I want to keep it and give it out. So let's try to do that. We are really hoping that this will succeed and will help people. We understand this isn't going to set anybody fully up in their business, but at least it can put a little money in your pocket and sort of give you some money back from things that you've already spent. Any questions about that? Please. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that we're microphone. Sorry, Nick.
Hey, Malachi Amen, California Urban Partnership. It's obviously, you know, good to see these dollars from the state moving down into cities and to social equity participants. And obviously, we now have a business reimbursement program in place. Are we looking at, as a city, at kind of indefinitely doing the capital disbursement in a reimbursement kind of fashion? The reason I ask that is because, as we've kind of discussed before, there is an access to capital disparity with equity applicants, and I won't go into all of the reasons why, but I'm asking because it seems like with just doing a reimbursement as opposed to, a front loading of the capital, because the capital is needed right now. Because if you need capital, you obviously need it now to purchase equipment or to pay for license fees, that sort of thing. And without having the capital now, I think many of us who are falling in the social equity realm, we end up falling prey as predators or as victims of predators on the private capital markets, because they can say, I provided you with this amount of capital, and so negotiating the terms with private investors are not so favorable for us because we don't have capital up front. And so if you could speak to that, I'd be curious to know if anyone else in the room shares that sentiment.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that share that view, because I think it's a very realistic view. It is a huge problem. I mean, I think every single person in here would say access to capital is the biggest impediment people face. Even if you're talking about even finding a place to put your business, if you have enough capital, you can find a place, right? You can make that happen. So I can tell you that this is, I guess we could call this, this is a first step. So we got a chunk of money, and we're conscious of the fact that, there are people who have been working towards their business and trying to make that happen. So we want to kind of provide a little, it's a Band-Aid, it's not a full healing, right? So one of the things that we're going to be talking about next actually is this much larger grant that the state has made available. So it's up to $10 million for each. I'm giving away the next slides, but it's a much larger grant. Dang you, Malachi. It's a much larger grant. So we are applying for $10 million, and our hope is that we will get, if not that entire amount, a large chunk of that. And our goal for that money is, we're looking at trying to do some kind of a revolving loan, like no interest loan or grant program, as well as sort of looking at kind of, can we fund some sort of an incubator program or something else? So those are kind of the ideas we're tossing around. And when we get to those slides, dang you, Malachi, we are going to be soliciting ideas from you guys about what do you want, if we are able to get 10 million, heck, if we can get 5 million, what do you guys want to have happen with that money? What would best serve you guys in trying to get your businesses up and running? What is the need? I mean, we have some ideas, but, and we're happy to share them, but knowing what you guys are looking for would be helpful to us. So that's really what we're looking towards going. Good. Okay. Oh, sure. Sorry.
Hello. Yes, so my name is Aaron. The BOP situation, you have to have a CUP before you can apply for your BOP. And then that's a condition of the grant. And I just feel that's rushing some people a little bit into maybe doing a bad CUP deal. Doing the first come, first serve. I wish there was a way to just allocate the money to each of us, starting off, and then maybe have a surplus to where we could tap into. But to say first come, first serve, I'm hoping it's another round of money, because I'm not gonna rush into a bad CUP deal, just to apply for $25,000 to start up. So the first come, first serve, it could cause certain applicants to get preyed on by, people who own buildings,
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, and, I can, I think this is a program that I fully admit it will be able to help some people, and it won't be able to help other people, depending upon where you are in that process. And what I would say is for those people that this, you're far away from being able to get to apply for your BOP even, I would say that, hold on, we're working hard to try to get, more dollars from the state so that we can pass them out in something else. Because I think when we're looking at trying to set up a no interest loan or a grant program, I think we would really be looking at targeting folks who really, they have a good idea and they want to do their business, but they just don't have the funds, right? And that's really looking at what we're doing.
Did you change the rule for core applicants that we can apply for our BOP before a CUP, before we have a building, that we can apply for a BOP just the core graduates instead of having to have a building locked down to even move on to the BOP?
So I think that that's something that we're always looking internally at ways we can try to improve the process. So we can definitely brainstorm and staff this kind of thing. I can't promise anything will come out of it. I can tell you that we're looking very carefully at ways to try to remove impediments, whether it's systemic impediments that in our government system are causing problems, or the access to capital, access to place. So, I definitely encourage you to if you have any thoughts on exactly how that would work. I mean, we're taking notes now, and we're gonna try to get this all down. But if you have other thoughts, definitely let us know. That's what we want to come out of these stakeholder meetings, because we can't, if we're not aware that something is a problem or an impediment, then we can't do anything about it. We may not be able to do anything about this either. But by being aware of it, we may be able to find some workarounds or some other issues that some way of dealing with that. We may not, but we're going to do what we can. That's not much, sorry. Oh, whoever's next.
Hey, how you doing today? My name is John Long. I was looking at the side regarding rent. I have a property that's CUP'd up already. It's ready to go. Need $21,000 in order to get the property. Coming, with that amount of money, to like get it and then getting reimbursed for it. Is there any way that I can get around that in order to just give you the receipt from the landlord saying like, hey, this needs to be paid, and then have you guys pay for that property? Or do I need to submit, my actual cash receipt? Well, I mean, if I'm giving cash to the guy, then, how can I show you that I paid rent, and if you don't? If I don't have a receipt for it. A lot of this stuff is cash deal, handshakes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can sign a landlord lease and say like, oh, I have the building, but I need you to reimburse them. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would want to try to, I think if you attached your lease, which indicated the rate of payment when it started, and then, receipts that say,
That it
here's
was
for January, you paid $4,000, $6,000, whatever it was, for rent at, 555 Main Street. I think that's the way you do it. We're looking for documentation that when because the state can audit us, and we have to basically provide them evidence that we use the money appropriately. Otherwise, we have to pay that money back if we did not use the money in compliance with the grant requirements.
So if I show you a landlord lease that I paid, my 21 grand for my property, you guys would reimburse me for that, basically.
So under the sort of the guidelines that have been established for the rent, it's applicants who paid for a CUP may qualify for a rent reimbursement up to the total amount of their CUP. Incubators can qualify, and a shared manufacturing facility type S may qualify. So if you've got a CUP for that you paid for, and you can show us those receipts.
Well, the owner already has a CUP on the property, so I didn't need to come in. I'm coming into his property that's already CUP'd.
Yeah, so I think we're looking for the amount up to the CUP. And I think we talked about if someone had already, because I'm trying to think, it's been a long day.
Yeah, because there's properties out there that already have CUPs on them, so.
Yeah. Well, we'll think about that. I mean, again, I would encourage you to submit what you have and we will definitely look at that, because we realize that for places that already have a CUP, that doesn't negate the fact that you've been paying rent on that spot. So we'll definitely look at that. But I know initially we had talked about basically trying to, repay you for the cost of the CUP through a rental reimbursement, because we can't, as the city, we can't say this is a free CUP for you. We can, because that's not our program, right?
Exactly.
We're OCM, so we've waived our fees, but, you know, the planning department is a different beast, so we can't waive their fees. So this is a way of sort of, kind of waiving those fees in an after-the-fact kind of way.
Yeah,
So
then
we'll
that's
talk
what-
internally, and we'll put it up on the website, and we can definitely send it out on the email once we kind of,
Well, I'll submit my rent or whatever that I paid for, my property, because it's currently happening right now. And then whatever you guys can reimburse me for that payment, then that's what I'm expecting to use my $25,000 for. The other thing that I wanted to ask is,
yeah, but that is the other qualifying
I-
issue, is you
well-
have to have applied for a BOP. So
okay,
if you
well, I can
don't
do
have a
that. That's not a
BOP
problem.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to tell you is a lot of the barriers to entry is basically back in the Prop 215 day, having a temporary license. If they had something like that, especially for the core program only, that would actually help us get through this process a lot quicker, because we wouldn't have to worry about making our properties perfect and so forth. Under a temporary, you'd actually be able to get started, still follow the rules, but be able to build your company from scratch, to wherever we can get profitable. So I think that's something majorly that you guys need to look into, is reenacting the temporary permits for the core program itself.
Okay. I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Hi, Davina. Brandon Bolden. I just wanted to say I definitely love the idea that you guys are kind of even thinking about the revolving loan program. I still think that's kind of the most effective way. I do think that is the most effective way to really help us get capital and also be able to tap back into that. And I don't think we also have to just worry about the state funding or city funding. I think there's creative ways where we can work with the general industry, and I think that they would like to work and support us in that fund as well. So I think that we can, there's definitely some workarounds there.
Thank you. Is there anybody?
Hi, I'm over here. Hi, I'm
Sorry.
glad to be here. I'm quite sure your staff has gotten emails from me. And it's my opinion here. I've worked with the city the state on the equity funding. And it was the intent of the equity funding to put those dollars into capital dollars for those who are in the core program. Your plan now says, here we are being shoved aside again because you guys decided that those equity companies, individuals who's already in the pipeline, who's got the capital, they're going to get first priority. And that was not the intent of the social equity funding and program. They allowed the cities with equity programs, they said, we'll give you this money, here's some things we want you to do, but from our standpoint, when I was with them, we kept saying that we need capital, we need cash in our hand to do this. And the city, your program doesn't even hit that intent. And for as the money in the government's budget for 2021, there's $45 million set aside. And I think you guys threw some numbers up there that you might apply for $5 million. Well, I like what you're saying, that you're going to look at that pot of money and create loan programs, and that's great. But I think this initial rollout is a disservice, and it's not the intent of the program. And like I say, I go to the meetings every quarter, and they want to know what's happening on the ground. And that's going to be one of my major concerns, is that you did not give the capital up front. You're giving the reimbursement, and I'm going to call it a scheme because you guys know I sent you texts and emails on that. You're saying that, hey, you better have money. And then the part that I really don't like about the program is you got to own 51%. So as some of the folks said too, someone's going to come in and say, oh, I knew you got $25,000. Now it's a little risk. My risk is reduced. I'm going to get my money back because the city is going to give it to me because you own 51% of the company. We want, and I'm a accounting firm, and we push for generational wealth. We don't push for, hey, I'm going to sell for the highest bid. People do that who got money. But when you start a small minority business, I want to be able to pass that business down to my children and my grandchildren. And this opportunity will allow us to do that. And it's unfortunate that the city has just pretty much ignored what the need is. I think there should have been some conversations with equity core graduates to say, hey, help us design this program that will benefit you. And you and your staff decided, oh, no, we know the rules. We're going to do it this way. We don't trust you. And I see you talking about receipts. I need a receipt, which you do. I'm an accountant order. You got to have every receipt that, you spend money on. But it's burdensome. You talk the tax thing. A W-9 reports income to the IRS. If you have a W-9, you don't have to report to the IRS. But that means I got to have a tax ID number, and I got to let you know it's a corporate tax. I can't put my Social Security number on a W-9. A W-9 is only for corporations, LLCs. So if you're not one of those, and I tell everybody to be one, you submit the W-9. But I know I'm rambling here, and I really appreciate you guys with the time. But Nick, you're going to get more emails from me because I'm on this. Like I said, I spent 2 years working at this, and the equity program is great, and that's why you got the money. But this program you created here is not the intent that the state wanted you to do. So I've already asked for you guys to do some reconsideration on it, do some modifications to it. You can do that. I mean, you're in control of the funds. You ain't even got the $1 million yet. And they're paying you, the city, $192,000 to run this program. That's 10%. They're paying the city that amount. So you guys getting paid to manage money that's supposed to go to equity clients. That's where it's supposed to go. The dollar's supposed to go there, not in some reimbursement scheme. So I hope all of the equity folks get on our email list because there's always power in numbers, and we're going to get this changed because you ain't even got the money yet. So we're going to get this changed. I know Attorney Sweeney, who's the sub-chairman of the social equity program, and at this point right now, we can change it. And with everybody in equity who don't have any capital, I ain't got nobody. The gentleman back there says, hey, I'm in the game. I got an investor. You got an investor. Yeah, come on in. And then you're going to scrutinize all about these receipts. That's not how capital works. Capital works, you give me $25,000 cash in a program. I give you a budget. And with that budget, I'm going to spend it on these things. Just the whole cost to get things going for the city is $21,000. You ain't even got no lease yet. You ain't got any of that. I got to pay $21,000 back to the city from the state government that they gave. So in addition to the city getting this $192,000, I'm going to have to pay can I finish? I got to pay the CUP. I got to pay the BOP. Those fees, I got to pay those fees. And that's good. That's good. But I'm just saying, I'm going to end my point with this, is this program, reimbursement program, is not the intent of what the state wanted. And I, along with all of the equity folks who get on our email list, we will be sending this to the co-chairman, subcommittee chairman, and we will demand some change. There's got to be an adjustment to this. You can keep this, but there should be some change to where $25,000 cash go to some of those 40 equity folks. Because you're saying a year, if you want success, I think this program is just one piece. I'm going to finish right now. One piece, but I'm going to be working with you equity folks here, and we're going to get something changed.
I know. So, I do want to note that it's about 6:35, so I'm trying to kind of keep things going. I appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate your passion. I mean, honestly, it's awesome to see because there's so many people just sit back and don't do anything. So I appreciate that. I disagree with you respectfully, of course. That's what we can do in a democracy, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah. I can tell you that there is no equity program anywhere in California that just sort of hands out money with no sort of review qualifications, auditing, other things. There's nobody that does that. And so, again, we are trying to get this first chunk of money out as quickly as possible and without being up in people's business to the extent that we can. So I understand your concerns. And honestly, if you have any pull at all with the state, I would love it if they would expand the things that we can spend this on. We can't spend this money on, for example, widespread expungement services, right? We can't fund a clinic for expungement services. We can't do a lot of these things that we would love to be able to do. And that's kind of unfortunate. So I think, there are things I would change about this grant program as well, but it's what we've got. And again, we're trying to send this money out as quickly as possible into the community. So I hear your concerns. I welcome them. And yeah, let's move forward. Let's continue this dialogue. I think it's good, and I think it's good to hear what you have to say. No worries. We're going to try to get this money out as quickly as possible to people. I understand that you want something different to happen to it. Let's see where we end up. Thank you. Yeah, can we maybe save some questions for the end? And I kind of want to get through this fairly, and then we can kind of have more time at the end to discuss. So let's see, where are we? Okay. So on our website, if people have navigated through there, this is kind of where it's at, the core program. On the left-hand side, there's a link to the business reimbursement. All right, so let's talk about the exciting thing that Malachi tried to get us to talk about too early. Thank you, Malachi. So local jurisdictions are able to apply for up to $10 million of this new grant that's becoming available. We are in the process currently of applying for it. We are drafting as quickly as we can and as best we can. We are looking basically for input on where this money should go. There are certain restrictions on what it can be used for. So it can be used for grant or loan programs. It can be used for technical assistance. Just like this current grant, no more than 10% can be used for admin costs. So we don't take an out, we basically, what it costs us to sort of put the grant through is what we take. So we're looking for basically information on how best to use these funds when we're restricted to technical services, loan, and grant programs. So I've already mentioned we would really like to do a no-interest revolving loan program. We're interested in funding technical services, sort of classes, networking events, things like that might be helpful. So I think we're really trying to figure out what is of use. What are you guys looking for, and what do you want? What do you want? Oh, I went too quickly. And I've got note takers on standby. Okay. So did anybody want to, with a microphone? You want to do it? Okay, well, we can just kind of go through it. So hold on to your ideas. Maybe this will give you time to think about it. Oh, so you've got those already? Okay. All right, so let's do the other sort of information thing. Lottery for storefront dispensary permits. As you all probably know, the City Council on January 14th authorized and asked us to come back with an ordinance and a program for rolling out 10 dispensary, sort of storefront retail permits, 5 for 1 year, 5 for the second year. It's going to be exclusive to core applicants for a minimum of 10 years. And core participants must own at least 51% of the business. You will have 3 years from the time that you pull your winning ticket to open a storefront dispensary, and if you're not able to do it in that time, then it kind of goes to the next person on the list. And then as far as location, what we were directed from the City Council so far was that sort of the existing zones, and then they also expanded locations previously occupied into shopping centers, Del Paso Boulevard. So there's a little bit of an expansion of places where these can go, which is sort of exciting. But for us, as we're kind of going into that work of amending the code and coming up with a plan, we really want to know, what should be, how do we pick these, right? We want to be as fair and equitable. We don't want to say we like you, we don't like you, because we don't think that's really the right thing to do. everyone's here because they want to start a business. We do think it should be, of course, core eligible, core verified, core program participants. So should it be a core graduate? Should it be someone who's eligible for core, someone who's currently in a core program? So those are some of the things we're looking at. We're also looking at, should it be just a straight lottery? Like if you are a core person, you're in the lottery and we'll pick, 5-year 1 and 5-year 2. Or should it be lottery, plus, right? So qualifications to get into a lottery. So in talking with some of our colleagues in economic development and other cities in California that have sort of done this kind of thing, we kind of developed a list of like, okay, well, these are some possible ways of doing it. One is a blind evaluation of a business plan or a proposal that's submitted, and that would be like viewed by a committee that has sort of startup business and cannabis business experience. And there would be sort of, there would be no name associated with it. It would all just be sort of typed out. And so there would be no way to know who submitted it. It would have a number or something like that. And then, of course, how are they going to screen it, right? Is it going to be a ranked scoring, top X percentage available for the lottery? Is it just a yes, no, right? You're qualified, you're not qualified. And then if we do sort of say we're going to have some qualification by a business plan or proposal, what should be in there? What are the requirements? So I know we've been sent some comments and suggestions by a couple people, and we definitely appreciate that. So we've kind of added those in as well. So this is a list of things that we either thought of ourselves, we heard from economic development that they look for when they're evaluating a business plan, as well as some of things that you guys submitted to us. So quite a number of things here. Should there be a workforce development component of that plan, mentorship that's in the plan, encourage growth of other core businesses, partnership with core permit holders? Should you describe how you will retain a majority ownership and profit sharing? So there's no sort of the predatory, you're a 55% owner, but you get 20% of the profits. We don't want that to happen. Should there be a letter of intent to occupy a space, or should that not be? I see a lot of no shakes. Okay. Yeah. Should there be a neighborhood sustainability plan that you're talking about how you will help the neighborhood? And is that the neighborhood where your storefront retail operation is located, or a neighborhood in a core district, right? I mean, I may be over here, but I'm going to help improve that neighborhood over there that was impacted. Should there be a verification that you have a minimum amount of funding? What kind of, should there be a partnership or some efforts to sort of reduce access by youth or youth education? So, we kind of just floating things out there, seeing what's stuck. And I really appreciate those of you who submitted ideas and definitely helped us. And then next and last, we can get to some discussion. Wrong way. So we're also looking at, I think I mentioned earlier, wanting to really encourage incubators or business accelerators or some kind of equity booster, which sounds like we should all have cheerleading things. But so really, if we're going to do this, we need to know, what do you need? Like, I think, and I'll just tell you my personal view is that I think different people are in different places, and it may be appropriate, therefore, to have different levels of support necessary. There may be, and we'll take questions at the end. There may be people who are ready to go and just maybe need a space. There may be people who, and maybe monthly networking and mingling kind of master class once a month or something, right? There may be people who just need a space or just need, assurance that their rent won't go up 30% every 6 months for a couple years. And there may be other people who need that full-fledged kind of wraparound services to help them grow their business from a great idea to a product that's out there, making them money. So, we really want to know, how can we expand we have an existing incubator model, but it doesn't seem to be very useful to people. And so how can we really expand that, right? On the one side, getting core eligible folks what they need to really kind of grow their business. On the other side, getting folks who might be willing to provide those incubator or business accelerator or booster services, what do they need to have them kind of invest in that kind of program, both their money, time, and energy. So yeah, that's officially question time. I see there's no questions, so no.
You already got the talker. Oh, we're gonna put someone else.
How you doing? My name is Xavier Townsend. I have a quick question. And we talked about the grant money, the $10 million that you'd be asking for. You said revolving loans. Why would it be loans when the money is grant money? Where would that that payback money? Where would it be going? Because it's a grant, so it's free money. So when a person pays it back, where is it going?
So the idea with the revolving loan is that it's let's say if we got $4 million, right? We would have a chunk of $4 million. We would be looking to, with a no interest revolving loan, we'd be looking to loan all that money out within 12 months. So we'd be pretty aggressively soliciting you all to take some money. But then when you paid it back, it would go back into that fund. So basically, the people a year from now that are going through the core program, there's hope for them too, that there will be funds back in that chunk of money that they can then get a loan from. So, we want to help you, but we're also looking for the future too, right? And to give some hope to people who are like, I just started my core classes, and are you telling me I'm not going to be able to get any of this money? That's kind of cruel. So that's why we were thinking, we could grant it, we could do other things. I think a revolving loan is good to just think about the future.
Hi.
Oh.
My name is Anthony Vasquez. I've run a dispensary in Sacramento since like 2009. I was fortunate enough to get a pre-registered property for distribution and cultivation. And, the BOP, the CUP, those are scratching the surface. A lot of the big costs come in when your construction costs come, getting your permits, doing your build out. Those fees are astronomical. And if you have difficulty with your architects, your electrical engineers, your structural engineers, that can really create a trap for you. I myself am going through that struggle now. I was pre-registered and allowed to operate. I had problems with my architectural team. I've ran into the housing department now. My building has been shut down. My business has been shut down for the last 2 months. And I hope to be operating soon, but the costs just keep coming and coming. And so getting to what John said about allowing these core people to get their foot in the door and actually get some business going is instrumental, because I would really like to know how many of those pre-registered businesses are contributing revenue to the city now, whereas if everybody had to start from getting your building, get your CUP, get your BOP, do your construction costs, 3 years later, okay, now you can do business, how much revenue would have come into the city? If these folks want to do business, you got to give them a leg up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have a
And
question.
it is interesting, because I think, just to respond, I know we've been looking at other, again, in the hope of getting something once we're awarded the next chunk of money, knock on wood. We've been looking at like the City of Oakland's revolving loan program, and they have different tiers. Their initial tier is $5,000. Their second tier, and you can only do one tier at a time apparently, right? You can do your second tier, which is $10,000. They have a third tier, which is $15,000 for build-out purposes. I'm sure, I'm not going to ask, but we all know that construction costs can quickly balloon well past $15,000. So it's interesting, because we're looking at what they're doing. We're talking to them about what their perceived successes and failures are, but we're also looking at how can we improve upon that and try to make it work here. And what we're definitely hearing is that there needs to be additional funding for those build-out costs and other things that are happening. So I think that's something we're going to be looking very carefully at, because we don't want to, again, sort of dangle a carrot in front of someone and then sort of say like, yeah, it's just going to be out of reach. It's going to stay out of reach. That's not our goal. We want people to start businesses and succeed in businesses. So that's what we're looking at.
What really was instrumental to, I know a lot of businesses getting started, was the grandfathering and saying, you're pre-registered, you can operate. If you guys did that for 6 months, 9 months, however long to actually let the business get up and running, and you gotta crawl before you can walk, and it costs a lot of money to be in this industry.
I hear you. Appreciate that comment. Thank
I
you.
have a question. Hi, my name is Miko Banks. Hi, Davina. So my question is this. So for people for us, the core members, a lot of our issues right now is finding locations to actually start our businesses. So how many people actually have the BOP application in from the core program? is one of the questions that I have. And then if we only have a year to use the funding, then it's going to take, 4, 5, 6 months to get an actual building. If we trust the landlords, I guess, I just think that you guys should take that portion off of it as far as the BOP part of it, because I purchased land, but I can't qualify for it because of the BOP stipulations. I still have to get a CUP, which is $30,000, right? So I just think you guys should rewrite that or something. I don't know if you can possibly, because I know the biggest thing is just finding the location to get started in business, which is already going to be expensive, and it's already hard to find locations now. So the money just maybe just sitting.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, we conducted a series of meetings prior to, when we were applying for the money and then when we heard we got the money. So a lot of this is feedback of what we got from people. But, we're trying to refine stuff and try to improve the process. So that's why we want to have these meetings and we want to have these conversations because, we don't know everything and we appreciate your input. So thank you. Yeah, it's there.
My question is, my partner and I, we're going through the core program right now, and we're going to need a substantial amount of money because we're going to be opening a test lab. The equipment is astronomical expensive, about $800,000. So we're going to need about $1.5 million just to operate for the first year. So how would they allocate that $10 million out?
Yeah, so well, knock on wood, I love your optimism. We're going to get that 10 million entirely. That's right, we are. I think that's one of the things we're looking at, and it sounds from what you're saying, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying that maybe depending upon the license type that people are searching for, there ought to be varying caps, right? So if I'm looking for a delivery-only dispensary license, if that's what I'm doing, then maybe my cap is, I don't know, $100,000. But if I'm doing a lab or volatile manufacturing, if we get that back, then maybe my cap is $500,000 or something like that. Is that kind of where you're going? That different industry types will need or different permit types will need?
Know what tier for a test lab?
Yeah. Okay.
How much of that $10 million could I get in a grant or a loan?
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that. That's a good comment. Thank you. Well, they're all good comments, but it's a good idea that we'll definitely put on the plate. Thank you. She's working hard to add them all.
Hi, my name is Raquel. I can speak from experience because we're going through the process, and I can say that one of the biggest things that I see here with this program, $25,000 is obviously going to barely covers a CUP for people. With the BOP, that just takes care of it. That's obviously just taking care of like the city costs, unfortunately. But it's not addressing the cost of what people are going to have to pay to the state as well. So if you're cultivation, you're easily going to pay about $20,000 to just to the state. And that's in addition to that. Now, because we're on the city time, on everybody, one thing I could suggest too, is really maybe coming up with a Class A team that knows how to process these building permits where people aren't taking once they get to one level and they're taking 2 steps back and then having to go, oh, let me look at it and then tell you, oh no, you need to do this, we missed this time. Streamlining the process more easily and more efficiently so that way people are not losing time. I would strongly suggest that because time is money in this industry. So every month that goes by, people are having to pay their lease payments, they're having to pay, or whether they're paying rent, all those things add up. So outside of the $25,000, I would say that, you were saying, well, look at ideas for the grant loan programs and what you guys can do. People are going to need help with, I know we talked about it with the construction costs and all of that. They're going to need help with their engineering and architectural fees and all of that. That all adds up. But really what happens is that, and I like the point that she made was that, we only got a year to come up with that. Well, from personal experience, it takes longer than a year to get your building permits approved. So, you're on everybody else's time. So if this architect, and unfortunately, you're really going by faith too that the architectural team or the engineers you're working with is actually going to not screw you too, because you're on their time to go on vacation, or they take your money and they don't follow through, and then you have to start all over again. And then you go, when you go to the city side of things, you know, it creates this long, stagnant process, unfortunately, because you think, oh, I'm going to get to this part. Oh, then no, you take a step back, and then you have to, oh, we missed that. No, you got to do this. You send out a different inspector. Oh, no, you got to do this and this and that. Oh, but the last inspector said this was all you have to do. So, you know, it's unfortunately, I'm saying, you know, maybe there could be better, you know, something to where people are not, the cost is not on the people. The cost is on the people when the process is not efficient. And I I feel his pain back there. You know, I'm in the same boat too. It has been, you know, I'm speaking from personal experience. It is a lot of money that you have to pay once you get past the BOP side, CUP. If this program is truly for the success of people, you guys are really trying to help out disadvantaged people here in the city, then they are going to need access to more money to be successful, guaranteed. Because all this is going to do, this program is setting it up to make sure that the city is getting paid. Mm-hmm. That's what this is. BOP is being paid for, COP. Well, we need to do something more for everybody, and to ensure the success. And if this is truly state wants it to be successful, I would think that, you know, that's more tax dollars for everybody. That's more money into the community. You know, it's going to all flow. It's going to flow back. You know, so I would suggest. You know, find, you know, coming up with a better process, like maybe a team that deals specifically with this core. They're trained. You know, this is how it is. We give you a report every single time. We don't walk away, and we stick to what we say you need to do. So that way we don't make it harder for you when we come back and say, oh, we missed that, and here, you got to do this. And you go around in circles again, and it costs more time because every day that goes by is money out of your pocket. So that's a big thing that I would suggest doing as well, helping them with the construction costs. I know you said the reimbursement thing, they're going to need that. You mentioned the, you know, if you're part of the incubator program, what would you need? Okay, so to answer your question, if I open my business, what I would want is, you know, it'd be nice to have a tax break. You know, like some sort of, you know, we're being hit hard on taxes. I would say taxes. Now, I know city's not that much, but when you look at the overall cost, maybe the state can get involved or something. The other thing, too, could even be offsetting the cost of maybe a grant, too, to cover costs of labor. Like an employee, you know, like there's a similar program, like for people that are within a certain area or whatever, that if you hire someone that lives in a certain zone or whatever the case is, there's grants that pay maybe their wages for a year or something like that. Like stuff like that helps offset the front end costs of things. One of the biggest problems too that I see that like really makes me concerned about how this is being set up too is that, you know, one of the big things is you guys are saying 51% ownership. Well, you know, when you look at it from an overall like value of a business in the cannabis world, we know that coming up with 50% ownership could be very costly for people. And just like Malachi was saying, some other people were saying, you know, they don't want to be subject to loan sharks and all this stuff and people taking advantage of them. And unfortunately, that's what I see that's going to happen, because people are going to say, well, you know, people are going to come to them and say, oh, yeah, we'll do this and that, you know, we'll pay you to get in. And people are going to, you know, they won't have any other choice but to take it. And so if it's not structured in a better way, these people are going to get taken advantage of, unfortunately. And I'm speaking on that because I don't want to see that to happen in Sacramento. And if this is truly for that, then it has to be worked out on a better level for sure. And these people, because if you're looking at it, you say, well, what are the qualifications that we would need to look at? You know, honestly, you know, we know that, you know, if you already have a hard time coming up with the money, and that's why you're going through this program, or you're disadvantaged, you know, you were in this, you know, all the qualifications being the core program, but we already know that you're probably not going to have the very best submittal. Your plans aren't going to show the best as maybe like, let's just say, a big, huge corporation, like let's say Walmart coming out with this huge, elegant plan, and it could just kind of just show that, oh, maybe they don't have a lot of money, or and maybe they won't be successful. And that would be my concern, is that they might judge it from like the quality of the actual permits submittal, the building plan submittal. Do you get what I'm saying? So like that would be my concern if they're actually looking at it from that perspective, because I would see that if that I could see that being an option maybe on a different end, but because of the class of people we're talking about, I think it would still make other people, it could potentially stick out like a sore thumb, like, oh, they may not be able to, afford this type of permit or plan or whatever the case is. I mean, this type of license and or business or whatever. So I would say that it would be probably better to do a lottery, to do just a random lottery and see whoever gets it. I mean, because that to me would be fair. And as far as the core program and the services they offer, they'd already be getting their building permit, their building plans. Not the building plans, I'm sorry. Business plan will be all set up. They'll kind of know what to do and what steps to take and all of that. So
it sounds like you're saying lottery only. You're saying that money would be well spent on somehow streamlining the construction approval process, the building permit process.
That could be on the on the admin side of things with the grant money come, and then the grant.
Can I just ask? I mean, what do you think about the idea of maybe? Giving some financial incentives to someone, whether it's a core person or a non-core person, to sort of build cannabis-specific business campuses or something like that, where, instead of you having to go in and do all the tenant improvements and get the CUP for that site, it's sort of the property owner is incentivized to kind of get that CUP and build it out, sort of pre-suited even for cannabis businesses. Would that be, you think, a good use of that money?
No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, that could definitely be a good idea. Yes. I don't see there being. I can't think of a bad thing about that. I mean, that would obviously give more. It would open up more property, because that's a challenge for people, that finding available property. And then, some owners might be skeptical for, if someone approaches, hey, would you be open to allowing this type of business here? But if it's involving the city, they'd probably feel a whole lot better with the program, with the city being involved. So I think that that would definitely be a plus. I don't see a problem with that at all.
Okay, all right. And we'll have you take notes next time, sir. We'll probably end up doing that. Okay, who's next? Thank you, I appreciate those comments and that feedback, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Cargile. And I was wondering, could we go back on the slides, like 3 slides, so I could just see the slides to make my comments on? Oh, we can't go back. Okay. So go back 2 more slides. Okay, if you could go back 2 more slides, great. 1 more. Okay, so go back 1 more slide. Sorry, you guys, I'm just trying to
slide. No, I'm kidding.
find. Okay, here we go. Okay. So my first comment is my concern about 51% ownership. Every company is different, and every company is going to require a different amount of capital. At this point, our industry is very limited on how people can get capital. We can't get small business loans. We can't get bank loans. The only available capital that isn't the loan sharks is equity-based capital. So I think that needs to be kept in mind when the equity applicants are applying, that there's going to need to be some of that business available for equity in order to get the money. And the money that's needed is $500,000 to $2 million to start a cannabis business. So I just want to keep that open. And then the 10 years. I feel like the 10 years is really putting a requirement on equity applicants that is not on other businesses, and is actually restricting the ability of equity applicants to pass on wealth to the future generations if they choose B. You never know what's going to happen. I've seen people who need to retire for health reasons, or they just can't handle the stress, whatever reason they need to retire. And when we see federal legalization in 3 to 5 years, that's going to be a great opportunity, an opportunity for all of the cannabis industry to be able to retire. And some of us have been in this industry for 20 years and we're like about to die at this point. Like, it's hard. It's not easy. And so I just want to make sure that we don't put boundaries on equity applicants that we're not putting on other cannabis businesses that are going to actually possibly hurt them in the long run, as far as having them be able to gain wealth and pass on that wealth to their children.
Yeah.
And the next one, if we could go to the next slide. Sorry, you guys. I should have taken pictures of this. I usually do. I have a bad phone. So the lotteries, I go back and forth. Everyone we talk to, lottery, not lottery, I don't know. Next slide. I think there's a few things on that slide I wanted to speak on. So I do think we need to open up the way that core applicants can partner with other businesses. So I have, at this point, incubated 8 cannabis businesses successfully who are now making money, paying back their investors, and these people who have worked at a therapeutic alternative now are owners. And it's been really successful. It wasn't we started out to do an incubator. It's just we started out that I believe that anybody who has the want to be a business owner should have the ability to. And so anyone who works at a therapeutic alternative has the ability to work all the way up to ownership. And I feel like if we could include more of those mentorship, incubator type abilities within equity relationships, it would be really helpful, because it's really nice when you start your business to know how to run your business. Like, you've worked a business, you've worked through every area, and you know what you're doing by the time you become the CEO and you're off on your own. So I really encourage us to explore more mentorship abilities. And then the next slide.
Is that the right way?
Okay. So, letter of intent to occupy real estate or lease. You can't get a letter of intent without giving someone thousands of dollars. I've done it. Like, they know it's worth money. So these landowners, they know it's worth money to sign that paper. They're not going to give it without money. And they usually won't give it without a lease, because why are they going to hold a building for somebody who's going to take 3 years to go through a process? It's not going to happen. And it costs thousands, like $10,000 usually, $5,000 to $25,000 for a lease every month. So I really think that making someone have a lease or a letter of intent is really going to hold them back. I say start the lottery first. Whoever wins the lottery then goes and finds the buildings. The buildings have to go through a CUP process anyways. If not, you're just giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to that landowner who doesn't really need it. So that's really, really important, and that could be a really big step up for equity applicants. Of course, yes, we all need neighborhood sustainability plans, and everybody needs to be a good neighbor. Verification of a minimum amount of funding. Okay, it's going to be easier to get funding after you get the license. Before the license, nobody wants to give anybody money. It's so hard to get money now without a license. So if you can, once again, do the lottery first, get that license or that ability to apply for the license, then it'll be so much easier for people to get funding. And I think that's it. Is that the last slide? I think the last slide was just the incubator program, and I would love to talk to you about that, because I have done it for the last 5 years and done it successfully. And so at some point, I would just love to give some input into that.
Yeah, and I would welcome that. I think for anybody here who has done that sort of mentorship or incubatorship, to definitely let us know kind of what worked for you, what didn't, and what incentives would make it easier for you to provide those services to sort of nascent businesses. You can shoot me an email. You can send it to the cannabis. If anybody wants to meet, I'm happy to meet. And let me just to play devil's advocate for a second. Not that either of us are the devil, but you know, I think the reason I can tell you that I think the rationale that I heard from the city council on the 51% ownership requirement and the 10 years, you know, the 51% ownership was this hope that you know, a core business would stay a core business, right? And despite the funding issues that may be there, it's like how. If you're a 20% owner, is that still a core business? If you're a 10%, if you're a 30% owner, where's that tipping point where it's not really a core business anymore? It's not really, you know, you're not a majority owner. And so I think that was the council's idea, was that if you are a majority owner, then that is a core business. And we have certainly heard horror stories out of some of our you know, colleagues in other cities where, you know, it's really a situation where it's a, you know, there's a core applicant, or their version of core, an equity applicant sort of as the front face of the business, but there may be a 5% owner, you know, and they're only getting 5% of those profits. And, you know, we think the people in this room should be getting all the profits from their business, right? I mean, that's the hope. And we know that's not necessarily realistic in the current situation. So that's why 51% seemed like a reason. It's still a core business, and people are still getting, you know, maybe 51%, hopefully, of the income from that business, and they can, as you said, over time buy out those investors. So I think that was the idea behind it. And the same thing with the 10 years. It's sort of like trying to kind of thread that needle, right? Because on the one hand, you know, you want to, I think of it as a difference between like someone having a startup business, right, where the idea is you want to create this great business that you can sell and make millions of dollars and retire, or start another business, or invest in other, you know, do that kind of thing, that it's a vehicle to make money and then springboard it maybe to other things, or to life on an island in the South Pacific, right, whatever you want to do, versus looking at it as sort of I don't know, a low-income housing loan, right? Where you can own that home and you can live there with your family and raise your family, and as long as it stays in the family, you can keep that. If you want to sell it, you can't make more than 20% of what you bought it for, right? So you have a home and you have this and you're able to do it, but your profitability is kind of maxed out. So I think that's the idea behind the 10 years. Like, keep it core for 10 years and then sell it as your startup, right? But if you want to get out of the business before then. So I'm just like, I think that was sort of the rationale of the council going through this. But, you know, again, that ordinance isn't written, you know, so this is the time, if you guys have thoughts on this, to let the city council sort of know where you stand on that. Should there be no restrictions on ownership? Should there be only core forever? I mean, I don't know. I'm just a little worker bee, and I kind of do what the council says, so, yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're not putting restrictions that are going to hurt people in the long run when we're trying to protect them and we're actually hurting them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I understand that perspective. Yeah.
I got a question over here. My name's Jay, and just hearing from everyone's comments tonight and having going through the process, I'm still going through the process right now. The hardest process is securing that building. So something that I think the city could do, or if it's a state issue that they could do, is allocate the funds to just getting a building where all core applicants could go, where it's already CUP'd on the building, so you can house something like manufacturing, non-storefront retail, if you want to do distillates and stuff like that, but it overcomes the boundaries to entry just by having a building. If we have a space to go to, then we can get a BOP. We have a parcel in that space. And then from there, just give us, if we could do free rent, that would be ideal, but just give us free rent for a while so the business can actually make money. And then maybe after that year, then you have to start paying rent as we let more new core applicants get into that building. But that's something that I think is possible because, you know, every time a big corporation comes to the city, whether it be Nestle or Amazon, you guys give them property for pennies on the dollar with the hopes that they bring jobs to the community. But any economist will tell you that small businesses create more jobs than any corporation ever will. And a lot of us were doing that in the 215 days before we had to convert over to 64. So I think that would be the biggest help, is if you guys just got one of these dilapidated buildings, let's override some of the rules to entry and just let people be housed there. So now we have an address, a working address, and we can start developing whatever our trade's gonna be. If you're a cultivator, if you wanna make edibles, whatever it may be. But now we actually have a building, and that takes out some of the predatory moments that are going on when you have to go to a building owner and say, hey, can I get this building that's been sitting here for 3 years? And they go, yeah. And then you mention you do cannabis, and the square footage just went from 75 cents a square foot to $6 a square foot. Because if we already have a place, we don't have to go through that. And then if we're actually developing a business, you guys are right over us, monitoring us, so you guys can start weeding out who's actually going to be able to get out there and who's not going to be able to get out there. And then my other comment was on the brick and mortar dispensaries. I commend you guys for going with the 51%, because that's what's happening a lot out here is they're putting faces on the front of their companies who have no ownership on that company. But if you really look at the books, a few of us do own the companies and few of us don't, so I commend you for that. I like the ability of 10 years. I think that's what it said, is that 10 years it's only going to be only core participants can apply for it. So I think that's great. I like the idea of a lottery, but I would throw a +1 on there, and the +1 would be who is already involved in the industry, because we want to highlight the core program, you know, so when you guys go to the state and start asking for more money, you guys can say, hey, we've got Malachi, Jay, Bob, and Susan, or whoever the hell, and you can say, hey, these guys are actually running a business, they're doing great, and that +1 would be that we have to take someone from the core program, whether it be from Malachi, the Asian Chamber, whoever they recommend who's come through their program, we can, you know, put them under our wing and be like, this is how you get down. Even though it's just a brick and mortar, as a retailer, I can tell you, you have access to cultivators, you have access to the edible makers because they want to sell your products in the store. So we can say, hey, you got to take my boy on with you because he wants to learn how to make edibles, and we'll keep buying products from you guys. So it can become like a 360 win. They're selling products, we're moving core through, and those 10 licenses you're giving out are going to actual core applicants. So that was just my thought on the whole issue. But like I said, I commend you for the 51% and giving us 10 years and then 3 years to actually get it up and running, because just going through the process, I've been doing it for 2 years now, and I'm still not done yet, because every time you turn around, whether it's security companies trying to gouge you for $8,500 for cameras or whatever it may be, it's something every week. So it takes longer than, like she was saying, going down to the building department, that took 6 months just to get the plans approved, and there's no one in there. It's just crazy. But yeah, so I would suggest that be the +1, is that you give it out to core, but let them have someone underneath them and highlight the best people to apply for that license, so that you guys aren't going out there handing them out lottery-wise because everyone wants to do it, but then they fall fat on their face. So we come back here to city council and someone in Steinberg's position says, hey, we gave out 5, but they all failed. We don't want that to happen. We want to highlight the program as people who can be winners.
I hear you. Let me ask you this, and I appreciate your comments. You mentioned a period of free rent. I mean, is it, because you know, I kind of, like, my own personal view is, on the one hand, I think, well, is this just something that's going to, you know, if property owners, landlords out there hear that the city, you know, is willing to sort of subsidize rent are they just suddenly, instead of being $6 a square foot, is it going to go to $12 a square foot? And so I'm a little worried about that. So let me ask you, I mean, is it better to sort of say that if we are providing some funding, you know, through these grant funds, if we can provide some funding towards building construction or building rehabbing specifically for cannabis businesses, is it better to, in your opinion, to do free rent for a period of time, or reduced rent for a period of time, or just no rent increases for the first 2 years or something like that?
I would say free rent for your first year, because it takes you a while to start, you know, as a retailer, just to get on your feet. You're in the red. I mean, I'm still in the red, but it takes you years to get out of that red, and so you can get into positive cash flow. So just like I said, having free rent for a year, and then if you're still going, then just reduced rent, and then we keep that capped at 5 years. And then at that point, let's let someone new get into the building so that they can get their business off the ground, because that's about 6 years, just a rough estimate, to get your business up and going. And you know, if you're not up and going in 6 years, you're doing something wrong. So you got to come back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the other concern, of course, is that if you, and I know there's a lot of people that want to talk, I'm sorry, but I'm excited that we're having this sort of conversation, and hopefully a dialogue. So let me ask you this, though. I mean, is the concern then that you know, I'm going to be in my spot in that nice business where I get the first year free rent, and I'm going to be there for as long as I possibly can be, 5 years, 6 years. And then everyone else who wants to come up and like, hey, we want a spot too. Should there be a cap on the amount of time you can stay at a place like that? Where it's sort of, I don't know if it's an incubator, if it's a business assistance, if it's just a place that, I don't know, whatever we'd call it.
It would be like a building assistance for core program applicants. And the idea comes from going to college. You know, when you want to get funding, you want to learn about grants, they have a whole room and a facility over there that shows you how to apply for grants. And that could be at this facility as well, where you have an architect that the city's paying, where all core applicants can go and submit their plans, so we don't have to go to all these different architects. And then that architect becomes a specialist just on cannabis planning. And you have legal help in the building as well. So if you want to go look over contracts, you got the legal help right there. It's just an all-in-one shot, because that's where a lot of this money is needed, is you're running around town to do this, that, and the other. Next thing you know, you just spent $20,000 and got nowhere. And now that's all your capital and it's gone. So instead of just allocating money to people, which is a good idea in theory, if we already had the infrastructure in place, that takes care of more of the money. And the city of Sacramento has the capabilities. Like I said, Nestle gets cheap rent right over there in the Power Inn district. Amazon gets free taxes whenever they want to open up. And pharmaceuticals aren't treated like us, but they get all these breaks. So why can't cannabis get the same amount of breaks? You know, there's empty buildings all around the city that we could use, and that the city could just override with a stroke of a pen and say, hey, this is where we're putting core applicants. You guys can operate out of here. You got a year free rent. We're going to help you with your business plan and get you to market within a year. And if they're on the course to get to that, you know, to get to the promised land, then keep them in there. But like I said, then you lower their rent after that for, you know, 1 year free, 5 years capped, and that gives you 6 years to get your business out to market. By that time, you're going to want your own building space anyway. You're not going to want to be housed with everyone, but, you know, because it's all competition at the end of the day.
No, I appreciate that. And I'll say, you don't want the city as your landlord, because, you know, you already have the building inspectors in there. Anyway, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Who's next? Oh.
Hi, Davina. Mindy Galloway from Camilla, CEO of Camilla. So I have maybe that step ahead. I was lucky enough to participate in Kimberly Cargile's incubator at a therapeutic alternative, and that real experience being inside, learning every aspect of operations was really helpful for me to open my own business and become a CEO and a license holder coming from a disadvantaged community where I grew up in. And my experience in this whole thing, and I think you can kind of see from every comment in the room, is that the whole entire time, so I've been working on this business for about 2 years, the hardest thing is funding. Hands down, getting the funding. I'm opening a manufacturing business. I need $3.5 million. That is very, very hard. And different businesses require different amounts of capital and different things that you're going to need to do. Smaller business, friends and family round, that is a lot easier than getting $3.5 million for a manufacturing. So in this process, and I'll just really speak about my experience and what I've been through, I have been through it all. I grew up in a community where I don't have a lot of, wealthy people that I know. I never grew up with the the teachings and the learnings of other people that are venture capitals or know this. So I had to learn everything, and I had to work my butt off just to get to where I am today. And I recently went to kind of the biggest investor conference in cannabis, which is the ArcView conference. I went there last week, and there's two things that people are looking at: valuation and exit strategy when you're going for millions of dollars. Dispensaries on most occasions are going to cost $1 to $2 million. And what do you value that dispensary at? If that dispensary is valued at $3 million, then you're going to have to give up a large portion, depending on the valuation and the percentage that you get in the end. If it's a high valuation and a smaller percentage, that can still be very sufficient for the person who has the license. And so I don't have the answers. I just want to let you know my experience and tell you and start the discussion, because I think it is something very valid to think about, depending on how much money you're going to need. The second is the exit strategy. So all investors, and they don't want to wait 10 years for an exit strategy. So there's two different things. If you were to keep it 51% and 10 years, then the city is going to have to help with maintaining that ownership, because there's no way that coming from no capital, you're going to be able to do that in that outside world and get that $1.5 million investment that is needed in order to open a dispensary. And so that's just my real world example based upon that. And then I also agree that having to pay the landlord for the lease when you don't know if you're going to actually get the license is going to be very difficult, especially if you don't have very much capital to begin with. And the third part is for the incubator portion. I definitely think that there needs to be more incubators. Obviously, I came from one. It is very successful. I gained so much knowledge and support from that, but it has to be the right model. And that end result has to lead to ownership and a license and an ability to scale your business. And I think that's important thing to factor in to think about. I'm not exactly sure what incubator model is out there. You mentioned that there was one that you were looking at, but not the details of that. And I just want to make sure that at the end of that incubator, it leads to real licensure and just not, working in that facility and being stuck in that facility or in that campus or wherever that may be, and that you are able to grow and scale your business and your license.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. And I do want to, just so you know, there's no particular incubator model that we're looking at. What we do have is in our resolution and our about core, it talks about an incubator, what is it, type 4, type 5, type 4, and that kind of lists what an incubator is and sort of what you get for being an incubator. And it's no one's ever applied for any of those benefits, so we're like, oh, well, clearly people think this is kind of janky and it's not very good. So let's figure out a way. I mean, we see a need for that here, and how can we get it to a point where it's providing what people need and it's incentivizing people who want to provide it, right?
Yeah,
so that's kind of what we're looking at from both sides.
I'd personally like to see an equity ran incubator.
Well said. Hi. So, well said, Mindy, by the way. So I know Mindy and Kimberly. I'm a business advisor and a consultant in this space, and I've had the privilege of working closely and getting my arms around the sector. First of all, it's an emerging market, so it's a challenge, I think, across the board, as we all know, and the complexities and the costs and so forth. What I've gotten to do is see this from kind of an outsider in, and I've sat and talked to many business owners in the space at every level. I work with a lot of like post-revenue cannabis successful brands and folks, and I talk to them regularly. A lot of them, and kudos to them, have taken on kind of internally the incubator concept that we keep hearing, as well as the mentoring concept, which has been the most successful one I've seen. I haven't seen any other process. I don't care what government person I talk to who thinks, the ideas are great, but when you implement things, it's a whole different story most of the time. And so when I'm listening to the different frustrations here, and I wasn't planning on speaking today, I wasn't actually even planning on coming to this meeting, what I appreciate about it is that the dialogues are across the board consistent. And what the gentleman who was sitting here, what he said was earlier about, building, maybe getting the city to do. I challenge the city, and I know you're in your new role, and good for you, because I think it's an interesting time to be in it. I challenge everybody in the space who's making the decisions on how to disperse this money to think beyond just handing it out through a traditional government type of process of, lottery or this or that. Let's think beyond that. And where I'm going with it is, I was sharing with Kimberly a few minutes ago, I think, what about taking that money and instead of dispersing it, because at the end of the day, we want the entire thing to be 100% successful, not 10% or 25%. If we're lucky, 25%, I think, would come from this, to be quite frank. But what about taking the money and focusing on creating a bigger picture concept here, where everybody in this room and anybody who wants to participate applies to be part of that mentoring incubator platform, where the city is involved in getting a warehouse where people get technical trade and experience and education of learning about the different parts of the business that they are interested in, applying to get into the program and having the program be free as a free education to them for a duration of time, so that they can be certain that they want to be in the sector, that they, that is the area they want to work in. And having businesses that are already successful, like ATA, like Kimberly's company, to be able to be the advisors or on the advisory board and be able to hand select the people who graduate and bring them in. And at that point, they've earned the ability to become partners at some point. Nothing gets handed for free, as we all know, but the success rate for it to be where it needs to be, from what I've seen so far, and again, it's the first layer of the onion, right? I believe that we're all in it for the right reasons, but the success rate will not be high unless we think beyond just this kind of first round of, hey, let's hand out 25,000 here, or this or that, or this, lottery process. I don't think we're going to see the success, sadly. I just don't. I wish I was more optimistic about it. I traditionally am. But I think the success will come if we look at what has worked and make that better. Bringing on, there are a handful of Kimberlys that I know of around California with their own companies that are making, that are profitable, that have a formula that works, and having those people tell us this is what they did and this is what they recommend, and building something around that with all that money. Because you could do more with 10 million with a project than dispersing 25 here and 50 there or whatever. I mean, I hope that makes sense, but my 2 cents is go beyond just what the parameters that we're looking at. So thank you.
So if I heard, what I heard was that maybe after people graduate from our current core facilitator programs, sort of directing them into sort of the super incubator depending on their need. And you mentioned with people who are sort of established and have as you said, a formula that works.
Well, it's the way I look at it is, it's a business at the end of the day. It's not building a government or a nonprofit, right? It's a business, and it's an emerging market that makes it even more challenging. Well, if there are success stories out there, which there are, they're sitting in the room today, why not take the ones that we know that have a trailing record of success and learn from them and go and basically build with the money that is being given to the city, instead of dispersing it the way that, we're talking about, have it go to one, like get a building so that none of these people have to do all that work and take money that you're giving them and put it there and then run out of money and then not to know what to do. And then it's a waste. Why not just take the money, build it for them, and bring them in so it doesn't cost them money, frustration. They don't feel that they're disadvantaged here. And they have all the right mentors who've done it, who truly and passionately, with their heart, want to make a difference in their communities. Again, I keep talking about Kimberly. I don't have a girl crush, don't worry. I'm kidding. I know her. But my goal is that everybody gets a chance, not just a lottery ticket of, 10 people. And I also think that, we need to think beyond just this type of dialogue. I mean, it's good you guys are having, and it's good that people are showing up and being honest at this point, but, take care of the complexities and bring people who really want to be in it and give them a real chance at this. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I kind of, before we start,
Hello.
I know it's kind of getting a little bit late, so and I see some people leaving. If people have to leave that and you haven't been able to talk,
Testing.
please email us your comments and your thoughts, and we're happy to get them. Okay, next.
Hello, yes. My name is Nawe Totome. I'm a recent core graduate from the Greater Sacramento Urban League, and I have a couple of comments in regards to the slides presented. Let me see. When we talk about the program, the core program, and we look for success, and we look to have success, and we look for successful business owners that are operating successful businesses in the cannabis industry, is there a point where we can get time frames on these things that are happening? Let's say if there's a lottery or no lottery, right? Because when I research in regards to other equity programs out there in California, and they talk about storefront dispensaries, I think all the qualifications are qualifications to make a successful business happen within a certain time frame. We started the program last April. Time's ticking. We can't find locations. You may have a letter of intent, you may not, but you have done the work and you're ready, and you can produce material to show that you're ready. Just like Mayor Steinberg said at the last meeting, he said if we do the lottery and we increase the number of permits, who's ready? There's individuals that are ready, that can show proof, that have, a financial amount of funding, that may have letter of intent, that have been working at this for a year. What other individuals said, time is money. Money's going by. If you have put money down for a landlord, and we're still at this point, we entered the program thinking it was possible to open a storefront dispensary. Then you find out that's shut down, and now we're 6 months later. we still don't know the process for the lottery or if there's not a lottery. So I personally believe that there should not be a lottery. We should model after San Francisco with some of those qualifications and having an outside entity, a cannabis consultant that can look at documentation and say this individual and this company can have a successful cannabis company, bring in money to Sacramento, and also adhere by all the qualifications such as hiring locally, coming up with different programs that put back in the community, different training programs, whatever may be your brand, that you want to go by. And I also think when I say the letter of intent part, I know that part is sketchy when one of the barriers as being a core participant can be funding, but also I think to eliminate the LOI process, and that process is the city council, we need to look at switching the process as far as permits, getting the permits before the cup, because time is ticking, money's ticking. You don't know, it can be a year. You don't know what they're gonna say, what code enforcement's gonna say, and all you know is that you're paying, let's say, $5,000 every month to hold this spot in hopes of getting a BOP. That needs to be switched around. That's a barrier, because then that takes away the access to funds and the putting $100,000 down before you even get your business operating permit, then another $100,000 before you're even open. And $100,000 is definitely on the low end, which we all know, which Kimberly said it takes at least $1 million to open up a dispensary, to get your product in there, to get the T&I, everything that you need. So I think that should be immediately addressed as far as the reversing of the permits in the cup. I do agree with the qualifications. And lastly, I want to say items not on the agenda that I would like to look at would be on-site consumption. Moving on to that, because there are a lot of core participants that want to participate in the lottery, that want a lottery. There's 30, like we always talk about, there's 30 that are out there that are not core participants, that aren't contributing back to the war on drugs. We discussed that there'll be 5 this year, 5 next year. But to open up another possibility for other core applicants to be successful, we can explore the opportunity of on-site consumption and how that may look in Sacramento.
Well, I appreciate that. And again, sort of we operate upon the will of the city council. So if you want to start talking to the city council members about, the need for on-site consumption and how you think it could work, I definitely encourage you to do that. Absolutely.
Hey, Davina. Yeah. Hey, I'm Brian Smith.
Thank you.
I know a lot of you guys. Part of the UCA with Brandon. So a couple things on the lottery for the dispensary. If there is a point system or a blind point system, maybe the personal impact on the war on drugs on you or your family, and then on the point system for the core, which was like category 1 where you were arrested, category 2, maybe those have a higher point system. If you have more ownership of the dispensary, you have a higher point system. If you have a building, personal finances, other things like that for the point system. If we did do that in the lottery system, the other thing would be maybe we do need a master license as an incubator. I know I've talked to the city. I've talked to many members of staff that are open to the idea. Out of the lottery dispensaries, we have a master license that maybe we collectively run together. Maybe that's a thought, but thank you for your time.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Doyle. So I just wanted to say that my family has been fighting for equality for a long time. And I believe that every step you take and every little number you put that people have to do is a step away from equality. So I've talked to 5 big cannabis businesses that are very interested in what we have going on here. So each one, they're waiting to see who gets it. So the money's there. The landlords are there. It's just, you just got to do the lottery and just give it to the core people. That's it. No, that's my opinion. No extra stuff, because like I said, every step that you add on to it is a step away from the whole point of this in the first place. Because we could have had it weeks ago already. We could be doing this tonight. I mean, I thought there was going to be a bingo machine here.
I gotta get my Vanna White dress first, but, no, I appreciate it. So it sounds like your lottery, just lottery? Okay. Thank you.
Another
Is there-
vote for the lottery.
Okay.
When we first started the CORE program, we were under the impression that this would help minorities impacted by the war on drugs. And every step of the way, this equity program in its efforts to create equity is erecting more and more barriers. One of the teachers we had said, consider every barrier a challenge, okay? And just listening tonight, every solution, you're creating a problem. It sounds really good for a lot of people to sit around and tell us how you want to protect us and you want us to be prosperous and you want us to do this and do that. But at a certain point, the big brother aspect of you guys enabling us to do this has to end. We as parents can be overprotective with our kids, but there's a certain point when we need to let them go. So in your over-analysis is creating a paralysis, so nothing is being done, nothing is moving forward, and it's like the natives are getting restless. We started this program, we met, we did what we were supposed to do. I don't know, there's probably about 40 people in our class. Now we're talking about a lottery, but the last I heard, there were 117 core participants. So now are we, the first 40, the first cohort, are we going into a lottery with the second cohort who's come, and perhaps there's a third at this point? When we were asked initially in the program what we joined for, we were asked to list. I put dispensary, storefront, and a delivery as a secondary option. What was the purpose of that, if not to put the feeler out and survey and see what our goal was? And it's like, you guys are putting, when you talk about unfair expectations in terms of the 10-year, it's like, we understand what's been going on. All of us, you know, we're no angels in this room, right? And we recognize BS. And here's the deal. All the people, the 30 storefronts that are operating, some of them have not been above, you know, they haven't been compliant. But we, the core participants, this is our life's blood that we're undertaking. We are going to be more than compliant. Those guys, they need to be dealt with appropriately, whichever businesses were not in compliance. But we can't be held accountable for that. If somebody goes out and stomps somebody with their Doc Marten boots, I don't want to give up my Doc Marten boots because I wouldn't do that. We should not be held accountable for all those transgressions of those previous businesses. We are trying to do this the right way, but all of these potential problems will never end. It'll never end. I could use my creative brain all day and come up with endless and countless barriers and potential things that could happen. But when do we start? The governor, everyone up here in all the district are saying 30 stores exist, none of them owned by us. When can we literally own one and get it going? I have investors, I'm ready. When does the lottery happen? The natives are getting restless.
Yeah. So let me ask you, do you have a suggestion for how, it sounds like you're saying a pure lottery, no qualifications, and ASAP, right?
I think that.
Okay.
In all honesty, I think that when we listed what we wanted to do in our first cohort, I believe there were probably 8 to 10 people who listed a dispensary. Taking that into account, the first come. I mean, we can't possibly, the members that come behind us, we come as we come. You know what I mean? We can't, I'm not saying that we're just turning our backs, but I'm saying that we're addressing us as we come. I want to be able to do monumental things in our community, a school, give back. We all do, right? But at some point, that lottery needs to happen. It really needs to happen.
Okay. So your position is first in time, first in right? So the first like 10 people who went through the core program and said, I want to do a storefront retail operation, those should be the ones who get the first 5 for the 5 years, second 5 for the second year.
If there are potentially 8 people in our first cohort, let's just say, okay, those 8 people who listed a dispensary, some people manufacturing, HR, hiring, whatever. Let's put those names in, but also we need to know, Or are you going to give me a license and you give me 3 years and then everybody just sit and wait and then nothing ever comes of it? That wouldn't be fair. I acknowledge that, right? But what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The core program has a goal, a stated goal. And now this is where we are, how the lottery works. Nobody can say a perfect way to make a lottery because somebody will not benefit. But 5 people need to start benefiting at the end of the day.
I appreciate that message, and I hear you. I mean, I think our goal is to try to, you know, we want to roll this out as quickly as possible because I am very.
Doesn't seem like it.
I know it doesn't, but I can tell you in government terms, we are lightning fast, which I know is not very impressive to the rest of the world, but for government, we are hares, we are out there. You know, and I know that doesn't provide much comfort, but I do appreciate your comments, and I hope that you don't sort of shut down. I hope you continue to participate in the process, whether it's coming to the meeting or just emailing us your comments. Either way, I think it's important to know what your perspective is. And I can tell you right now, everybody in this room is not going to be happy with whatever happens. You know, there's always going to be some level of unhappiness and dissatisfaction. We just want to make it a fair process, so at least we can say people may be unhappy, but at least we were fair. And that may even be maybe too much of an ask, because what is fairness? And I think fairness looks different on different levels. So Gotcha. Thank you. I hear you.
Hi, Deanna Garcia, and I am a core recipient applicant through the Urban League, and very happy to be there. Thank you, City of Sacramento, for making it, and thank you, City of Sacramento, for moving us forward, for Zara, and for you coming on board. I gave you lots of hugs the other day and told you I'm so happy you're a woman. That is not an understatement. I am so happy that this team is filled with women to be able to move us forward in the cannabis industry. So I typed up a couple of things here that I wanted to go over today. In regards with on-site consumption, if the core applicants were to get on-site consumption, that would raise the value of our businesses tremendously. And that would really give the core applicants a boost in life and family inheritance of wealth. So that is the first thing, is I myself would like an on-site consumption here in the city of Sacramento. Been trying since like 96 to get a license here, but I'm not going to give up. I'm still trying. The lottery, so the applications for the lottery, I believe that there should be some type of are you going to be able to be successful before you get put into the lottery? I also believe that you should not have to have a building to get put into the lottery, just because of the costs that you've been hearing all night about how much it costs to get into a building. So I'll kind of like just make it small. I had all these notes, but you've heard all of this all night long.
You can give that to us too if you want.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the 10-year, to be able to hold the license for 10 years and not being able to take the opportunity when federal legalization comes. We don't know when it's coming. Every president running right now keeps saying we'll make it legal as soon as we come into office. We don't know. You know, some people say 3 years, people say 5 years, but we don't know. It could come right away, and if it does, then that's a huge opportunity for one of these core applicants to be able to partner up or do something with this. Then it would be of a hindrance to actually put a 10-year requirement on them. So the on-site consumption, the 10-year, and the building requirement, I think, are huge hurdles for applicants, and the on-site consumption would be an extreme boost to any business, so especially a core applicant business.
Since you've got the microphone, do you want to opine on any, on if we get a bunch of money, what would be a good use of that?
There's so much good use for money, right? God, there's so much good use for money. But I would say just for people who really are at that step to be able to go further, to have no money down interest loans for them. People who are just there at that little tip, who the only thing they're missing is that extra funding, that extra capital to take them over to actually be successful with those no interest repayment loans, kind of like a farmer's home loan like you were speaking about earlier. But again, Farmers Home Loan has requirements, right, to kind of hinder you. Kind of like this 10-year, the Farmers Home Loan is the same thing. If you sell, you can't sell for a great profit. Well, how is that going to give the wealth? How is that going to send it down to the equity if you are capped on what you can make and if you're capped on when you can make it?
Thank you for that. I appreciate
Of
it.
course.
I'll just speak. I'm James Baker. I run a couple dispensaries, successful dispensaries. I also helped open a equity run dispensary in San Francisco. Sean Porter, he's the first black-owned dispensary in the city of San Francisco, and it's successful, and it's only been open a couple months. And I feel people's frustration. You know what I mean? I just, I'm not a part of the core program. I've been doing this for 20 years. I also run a dispensary called Cookies. I'm in Reading, and we have a bunch of stores. But it gets frustrating because it's just the jumping through hoops that you guys are putting these people through. It's a headache. Like she said, it's a headache. The permit part is the most important part, and the building. But that money that they're talking about, just having to give to the actual landlord on a whim, you know what I mean? It's just a whim. Like, I'm giving you 10 grand a month, hoping that I get a permit. And these people might have investors, but nobody's going to invest into any business without a permit, period. So once they get these permits, and then you'll have the bigger companies that'll come in and are willing to help. You know what I mean? I just think, I haven't had a chance to do the equity program because I work so much or whatever, but it's just a headache, and it's just a process that you guys are putting these people through, and just the prolonging. This is the last city. Like, Sacramento's like the last city for the equity program, and nobody has gotten anything. So I think I'm starting to feel people's pain in Sac, like even with the cultivation part of it. It's a process, because you do have, it takes $1 million, period, to start a dispensary. Period, point blank. Product, employees, build out, all that stuff. Advertisement, everything. It's $1 million, period, point blank. And like I said, I just feel people's frustrations. Like, I'm just telling you guys, don't give up, because eventually, hopefully, you guys get your stuff together. And then, like you said, they're always putting these center blocks, and you guys are doing this, and it gets frustrating because this process is like 3 years. It's been longer than 2 years. I came here 2 years. I spoke 3 years ago with Malachi. You know what I mean? Telling people how to start. I've been doing this for 20 years. And it should be a lot easier for them to get their process going, because if you really think about it, if you're talking, the lottery, really there was supposed to be a lottery for the 9 dispensaries that they let be sold to colas. That was supposed to be a lottery. Yeah, I understand that, but yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, those were supposed to be lottery. Just, you know what I mean? Just those dispensaries alone were supposed to be lotteries. Now it's like, this is a lottery. Like, it's a lot of BS that I see that goes on, and I'm just being honest with you guys because I've been doing it for so long. The process should have been pushed through. Like, this should not take that long for these people to get funding, and it's just, and a lot of it is that people are being appointed and put into places where they don't know what they're doing, and that's another thing.
Let me ask you, because it sounds like you have a lot of experience in this industry, I mean, and success as well. Are you somebody who would be potentially interested in like running some kind of an incubation program? And if so, like, what would you be looking for to do that?
Listen, it could start anywhere. Like, it could start with delivery. It could start with, it doesn't have to, like, storefront, I get it. You guys have your 30 stores, but like she said, we don't own one. Like, not one. You know what I mean? It's not owned, but it's just the jumping through hoop part that you guys are putting people through. They didn't have to jump through hoops. They were just getting permits at the time. Here you go. Like, I was signing up, and I was, but now, of course we would be manufacturing, packaging, anything. But there are companies out here that are willing to invest, like right now, in these people's companies, but it's just, you guys are prolonging it so long and not giving them the money that should be allocated or to whatever they need. It should have been done a long time ago. It's just a process, because like you said, there is a process. It's just not going to start overnight. You're just not going to have it overnight. It's going to be another year before you can open the store. Then you guys are going to say, oh, hold on, time out. we got to do this. It's just, it's believe me, I've seen it. Just from, not even from the equity program, the part of it, just from starting from scratch, it is a headache. It is a headache. We had to give up that 10 grand hoping that we got the permit. And if we've been there to where we did not get the permit and you don't get that money back, they're not, oh yeah, like here you go. You don't get that back.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do appreciate your comments. So I do note that we are like 10 till about, so if anybody hasn't spoken that would like an opportunity to speak.
I just want
You already had, there's someone behind you who hasn't spoken. If he's the last one, then you can take it over.
I just want to say maybe 5 to 10 is not enough from what I'm gathering. Like maybe you should make it more like 20 or 30 of possibilities to open up a storefront here in town.
Thank you. Anybody else hasn't spoken? Just, I'm sorry. You had a chance to speak. I want to hear from someone who hasn't, and I'll talk to you afterwards if we need to.
My name is Adiola Adedipe. I'm founder of Adiola's Advocacy. I'm a community advocate in Sacramento. My son was diagnosed with leukemia, so for me, everything is riding on this opportunity. And in order for us to get into the core program, as you know, we had to be minorities and we had to be low income in the required years. A lot of us don't have good credit or assets in the bank, or I have some savings, but $10,000 or $20,000 is gonna wipe me out real quick if I can't reinvest my money in a flip and have it just sitting. So I guess my message is, we have this hope, right? And you don't want to give up this hope. You have this dream. You have this vision that someone is giving you. But with all of this stuff out within the first stage, it can take you out quick. So what we need is momentum. I am a numbers person. I am a set a date. Let me pencil you in my calendar. We need a date where we actually start moving, because this is what we're hearing. And I can't afford to pay anybody $10,000 a month for rent. That's just not happening. I'm just a sole believer. I'm not throwing money away. That's not how I was raised. So we need momentum and we need a date soon to be able to move forward. And I guess that's a great starting point. I appreciate the time that you've given us and coming out and mentoring us. This business is a beast. I've seen it from different aspects. And if you don't have a group of people to really, like some angels, to really wrap their hands around you, because you can't trust people either in this industry. And I'm not going to jail. I'm too cute for jail. So if you don't have a group already who is really trying to mentor you, you're really lost. And you can be either full experience in the middle or none at all. And so with that being said, for what the core kind of relies on and what I've heard tonight, and I've heard a lot of people very angry, it's basically going down to the same thing. If we really want to see us core members successful, we have to really have a plan that has momentum to basically create a success rate. And right now, we don't have that. And that's all. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know I feel like I'm saying these things and people are like, she's just saying those. But I really feel that is a problem. And I know we in looking at our codes and how things are operating, we're seeing these problems. Like there is a bottleneck there, right? You go to core, you graduate from the program, and I know the facilitators, they're not here anymore, but I think they do the best job they possibly can with the resources they have, and they're, and then what, right? And so, we're working at our fastest government speed to try to figure out within the strictures that we have what we can do about that. And we're not, we know we can't solve everybody's problems. We can't sort of, I wish we could be Oprah and say, look under your seat, everyone has a business today, that I know, right? That'd be awesome. We can't do that, but I think we are earnestly and honestly trying as hard as we can to figure out how to open up that opportunity within the boundaries that we have as, we're a city government. And, that's really cool and powerful, and at the same time, we're just a city government. So trying to figure out what we can do, and there are a lot of competing interests. Do we try to spread the money out thin so it touches as many people as possible? Do we try to concentrate it and say, we think these 5 people are really gonna make it, and so we're just gonna go all in on these people? How do we do that? And what's the way that we can make that happen? And I don't think, I know in talking internally, and it seems talking here too, there's no consensus. It would be great if we could all agree, like, that's absolutely what we're going to do. So as I said, everyone is not going to be happy. We're going to do the best we can as quickly as we can, but we also want to get as much input as possible, because I don't want this to be, and I don't think anybody on this team wants it to be, and I think from what you heard up there at the dais, this is just the city kind of proclaiming this is what you shall do. We want this to be sort of a collaborative program to the extent that we can make it. And that's why, we give up our time in the evening to come out. We think this is an important thing, and we're going to continue to do that. We make ourselves available. We're happy to talk on the phone. Jamie over there, she's the friendly voice in permitting, that she's very smooth, and I think she's like butter. But, Zara's the mean one. No, I'm the mean one. But, Nick, who's hiding somewhere, Nick back there, he's another person who works very hard and does what he can. So, we're people. We're trying to do what we can. It doesn't help much, I know, but I want you to know that the belief is there, and the sincerity is there, and the honesty is there. I'm one person in a government entity, and I'm going to do what I can, and I know my team is going to do what we can.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
I
but that's
appreciate
what
that,
I've
and
got.
I'm not for the lottery. I feel like if everyone can get a break,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's $25,000, it's a break. It's a break that someone doesn't have to worry about, and maybe they can get some money from their friends and family or whatnot, or resources. But it's still a break that they have early on in the game. And I do appreciate you guys and the work that you're doing. I think just collaborating the two, which I've seen you do, I see you doing it. I see the work that you're doing already in the community, and really setting those dates like I talked about, and really having the momentum. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's something we're going to keep in mind, is that, we want to roll this out too. So we're going to do what we can. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Oh, hold on. Anybody else? Are we good? All right, your turn.
All right. So a couple of things. First of all, there needs to be shared use. You guys need to change your policies for shared use within buildings. So basically, like, if this gentleman has a building and he wants to occupy another business in there, he should be able to do that without repercussions of saying, oh, you can't have multiple business license under this, one location. This is a state battle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there needs to be some type of shared use with facilities. That'll actually kill all of the barriers that we have, because it'll help everybody out. The second thing is people. Okay. So the second thing is I'm actually in favor of basically being vetted into the dispensary situation, because not everybody is on the ground floor hustling to, get from point A to point B and having, the backing and so forth. I mean, how many in here have actually sold weed? Exactly. There's a handful of people. But I mean, if you were back in the Prop 215 days, there weren't that many barriers of entry. That's why I was talking about having a temporary license. Because if you let us go and just do what we need to do to make the capital, we won't need to, rely on you to have $25,000 or $100,000 or so forth. If we can go and start just, taking care of business, getting into the legal market, getting our license and so forth, and saying, hey, we're getting started under a temporary, there wouldn't be no need. The other thing is, there was a slide that I was looking at. Can you go back in the slides?
If our person has gone home.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Thank you,
Okay.
person in the back. Do you know what area it was under?
I think it's 3 slides back.
From here? Was it about lottery or?
I think it was about the incubator. Yeah, it was this one. So the 10 million that you guys are giving out, right?
Well, no, we're.
I
Believe me, I would love that. I would feel very much like Oprah.
Yeah.
But no, so we're applying. It's every jurisdiction has the ability to apply for up to 10 million.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, with all the stuff that's going on right now, there needs to actually be a vote. Like how you guys get up on the podium and they vote, the city council makes a vote. Everybody in the equity program needs to, we need to set a precedence to actually vote on something to move things forward instead of going back and forth with everything. Like there's there's two things. There's the one that people don't want to, they wanted just a regular lottery across the board. Then there's those people that want a vetted lottery. We need to vote on that and start doing that in every single meeting that we have so we can just push stuff forward. Because every time we have these conversations, they just keep going around and around and it just doesn't get done. You guys actually need to set up a process where we all come in, all 100, cohorts, and then just, how you are taking our information in at the door and actually vote on the agenda so it can actually get passed. Because if we don't do that, it's just a he say, she said, this is what I want, and nothing actually really happens. Because today I was actually interested in getting, the agenda pushed forward with the dispensary license. Like, 4 years ago, I was homeless. But 4 years later, I have 3 facilities. I'm already hungry. I'm not waiting for anybody. So,
So just so you know, I mean, how the process works in trying to get this, we have to change the city code in order to allow for the 10, storefront retail permits. And we have to come up with a policy, a practices of how we're going to administer how we're going to give them out, right? Okay. So what we do is we're basically trying to get ideas and take feedback. Then we go to a committee, a law and ledge committee that's composed of a portion of the city council members. We tell them, this is kind of what the feedback we got. This is sort of what we think. This is what, various people said. We have to make a recommendation, right? They may follow it, they may not. That is an open meeting. Everybody is invited and encouraged to come. Plenty of times, we make a recommendation and it goes the other, it goes a different way, and that's fine. We're not, this isn't our baby. We're just sort of the messengers. And then after that portion, assuming it passes that committee, then it goes up to the full city council, and it is, there's a public hearing on the matter, and then they vote on it. And once that happens, it's generally 30 days after that, it becomes a law. So, I hear what you're saying, and honestly, for us, it would be good to just be, if we could just kind of, I'm happy to send out a poll and just kind of people vote, right? I can do that on email, and we may do that anyway, just to get greater feedback on the things we've heard tonight. But having people here kind of vote, like, should we now give out dispensary? I mean, we can't do that. That's not the legal process.
Okay. The other thing is I was looking at the incubator model. The incubator model that is currently out, well, there's no incubator model out right now. The shared model that are out right now, that needs to be expanded on. So what I mean shared model is shared manufacturing, shared distribution, shared delivery, dispensary. That will actually get over a lot of hurdles that everybody are going through right now. Because if there's an incubation model, kind of like the current one that we have out here, which is a shared model where you can do shared manufacturing. That works great, but who's controlling the narrative under that? Who's controlling your IP? A lot of people are not going to lock themselves into, giving up their IP if they have a certain strain or a certain, cookie that they're creating and stuff, and being locked into a contract with a person that, just kind of like, oh, well, I'll absorb all your costs, but I own your IP at the same time, and then, you can come under my incubation and so forth. A lot of people would like to do their own work. So if there was some type of shared thing across the board, where you guys can scale back some of the, some of the not laws, well, yeah, some of the policies, it would help everybody out at the end of the day. Because, I mean, a lot of this stuff needs to be amended. Things that did work back in the day was the Prop 215 days. The 64 days now, it doesn't work at all. There's a lot of companies hurting. There's a lot of companies going under and belly up. And then not only that, you got they're treating cannabis as it is still, I would say, they treat cannabis like it's still an illegal thing. If you guys are making it legal,
No, I appreciate that, and we do have to vacate the room because we only have it for a certain period of time, and they get grumpy if we extend it past.
problem.
But, you know, I mean, I hear you, unfortunately, you know, we deal with the laws as they currently are, not the way they used to be, and we have what we have, you know, and that's kind of what we deal with. And so those are some of the constraints that we have, again, as a city. We're a city, but we're just a city. So the state makes up a lot of those laws, and we can't buck those. So, you know, I hate to be flippant, but, you know, laws are enacted by the people for the people. So if you've got concerns, you know, I would head over to this,
Well, I mean, they're amending Title 17 right now. So, or they're working on amending Title 17. So there's other titles that can be amended, you know.
yeah, so we can talk further afterwards, but I want to make sure people can go home. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to talk a little bit further, I'm happy to do that. But I know you guys have to go home, so, yeah. I have not gotten, this is week 4, so, do you have a?